Welcome back, everybody, to Creating Communities for Neurodivergent People. Today, we're going to take a look at a list of housing options that you have for your child, not only while you're living, but when you're no longer here. What will happen to my child when I'm no longer here? That is the overriding fear, isn't it? And the centerpiece to this fear is where are they going to live and who's going to take care of them? But the other issue is in preparation for when you're no longer here, how is your child going to live now? Are you going to be transitioning your child into their eventual home while you're still here and can manage and direct those options? Or are you going to leave it to chance? Are you going to leave it to relatives? Are you going to leave it to the state? You have a lot of different options, but I really want to introduce you to the options I've learned about just in the several months doing this show. And we're going to look at some pros and cons because next week we're going to focus in on another form of housing called co-housing. And we're going to have an architect who's built a ton of co-housing villages around the world. But in preparation for next week, I thought, well, let me lay the groundwork and let me discuss some housing opportunities that you have to consider. And then next week, we're going to focus on something that I think is wonderful, and it's called co-housing. But let's look at what the housing opportunities are now. Well, the very first one is your home. That is everybody's first opportunity. Now, obviously, if your child is not yet graduated from high school, of course they're going to live at home. But where are they going to live after they graduate from high school? Is the plan to always keep them in the home and then put them in another relative's home when you're no longer here? Well, that's what a lot of people do, but there are some downsides to that. So, what are the downsides to living in your home or a relative's home once your child is an adult and has some level of independence about them? That's kind of the key too. How much independence do they have in being able to take care of themselves? So living in the home provides a community, and the community is your family. But do they have a community outside of the home? Do they have friends outside of the home? Do they have the ability, or do you provide the ability for them to socialize and get together with friends? You know, a lot of parents kind of stop when high school is over. They're exhausted. They've done so much just to get them through school. And now maybe they can have jobs. A lot of people can, but how do they get back and forth to the jobs? Do you use a form of transportation called access, or do you drive them yourself? Are they able to drive? Some are, some aren't. So we have in the home safety, control, family, love, but they don't have friends generally, and they don't have social activities generally if they don't include the family. Now, I've done some interviews with people who have agencies that create community activities for families with neurodivergent people. Amelia Sosa with ARC, look at that episode that I've already done. And we have a woman in San Diego who provides runs for people. And we've already launched that episode. I'll have that in the show notes. I'm sorry, I can't remember right now. But home is the first option. That's what people use. Or depending on how severe your child's needs are and how much money you have to provide for caretakers, you might end up in the worst situation you'd ever want to be in, and that's institutions. I know, I even hate saying it, but sometimes, depending on how much you've played into the doctors that say your child will never have a life of their own, your life will be destroyed, put them in an institution. I mean, most people realize it's the very last resort. And if you put them in an institution, you have no control over how they're treated. Quite often, it's abusive treatment. There's no love, and there's no friends and social activities. Most institutions do not provide the network that your child needs. And so they'll be in an institution, but they'll be isolated from society. They'll be isolated from developing other friendships, and you need government funding. So maybe you need the institution, maybe, but quite typically we try and look for other options than the institution. Number three, Section 8 housing. Now, my nephew is in Section 8 housing, John, my nephew, but it's an adorable building. And somehow he has created a network of people that he helps. He is a very engaging person. So he's used Section 8 housing, which, by the way, he only got into in February of this year. He uses Section 8 housing um, as a stepping stone from being at his mother's home, my sister, for 40 years to possibly something else. But the building is clean. I've been there. My sister has to get involved with the laundry facilities. But my nephew has made friends in the building, and he's actually starting to earn a little bit of money doing errands for people in the building that can't go to the grocery store themselves, do errands themselves. And because he lives in a neighborhood of stores, he's able to provide services, maybe even laundry services for these people. And so he's been able to earn a little bit of money, not much, a little bit. He now has a job across the street at a popcorn store once a week. Hopefully that can grow into something else. But we're looking at this as a launching pad. He does He's not good with reading, writing, and arithmetic, so he has to have an aide, and that comes from the county. He has to have an aide that will help him with math, with his bank account, will go shopping with him and deal with money. But if he goes on his own, he's now positioned to say, look, I'm just not good with money. Can you help me? And so that's how he makes Section 8 housing work for him. He's not isolated. He's not isolated from people in his building, but he doesn't have friends outside the building. So he's isolated in that way, and there are no community activities he yet engages in, but it's only been several months. So let's see how this works out. But Section 8 housing was number 3 on my list. And then we have number 4. We have a form of housing that I only learned about 2 weeks ago, and it was because I was interviewing somebody for the show who is a sibling of a Down syndrome brother, and she was a better fit to manage her brother's life care than her parents. Her parents are elderly, they're not able to do it. Her parents love their son, but she was just a better fit for her brother. He is now with he's not with her anymore, but he's in what's called host housing. Have any of you heard of this? Host housing is like adult foster care for neurodivergent people. I don't think there's host housing everywhere, but this woman lived in Denver, and Denver is really Colorado is a model state for services that are just great, well thought out services for neurodivergent people. And they're kind of ahead of their time. So this is how I learned about host housing. But like adult foster care, it has to be government funded. So the people who provide host housing do get money from the county or the state. I don't know which, because we're going to more fully explore host housing on this interview with the woman in Denver. But I just thought, okay, I'm going to add this to my list. This is a great consideration. Then we have one of the better forms of housing called co-housing. Now, co-housing comes in many different shapes and sizes. I have interviewed two different people that run what I consider to be co-housing for strictly neurodivergent people. The architect we're going to talk to next week, Charles Durant, may disagree with me, but for right now, this is how I'm looking at two different places for you to look at. Lamb's Farm outside of Chicago, Illinois, and I've interviewed the people who run Farm. So go through my episodes and look for that episode. Lamb's Farm is strictly for neurodivergent people, but they have a limit to what they can do. They cannot have people that need minute by minute care. They are limited in that regard. So they will take in people for life, people that need medical care, but not people who need an aid all the time. So they need people that are a little bit more independent. So they take in most forms of neurodivergency, um, but they don't go full scope. Unlike Brookwood community right outside of Houston. So I interviewed Vivian Schutte and Janet Lewis. Vivian is the executive director of Brookwood community, and Brookwood's been around like Lamb's Farm since the 60s. And Janet runs another department. But with Brookwood, it's enormous. They take everybody, and you live there for life. You work there, you're housed there. It is your city. So, and it is government funded and private funded. So go on their website. First of all, listen to the episode on this channel, and then go to the website for Brookwood Community. There's a 20-minute video on there. They take you all around the facility, and they talk to you about how it was created and the commitment they have for taking your child in for the rest of their lives. They have jobs there. They have homes that they live in, and the homes that they live in are not like a home for all Down syndrome or all Tourette's or all autism. No, it's a microcosm of society. So in each house, and it's a 465-acre property, so there are, I believe, 11 homes. So in each house, you have several different types of neurodivergent individuals, so that the neurodivergent individuals can learn to be accepting of other people, can understand what other people's needs are, just not their own needs. And this kind of brings you outside of yourself. It connects you to other people. I'm fully in favor of the Lamb's Farm and the Brookwood community models. And so I do call them co-housing. But there's another form of co-housing that Charles Durant is going to talk about, and it's in his book, One Life, Live It. So you can get that book before you watch his episode. You can get it on Amazon. It's a phenomenal book. Phenomenal. So he's developed many, many co-housing communities around the world. And the co-housing communities are like villages. They're not only laid out to be community based and to be very safe to be in. He's going to explain how the architecture works. But in my mind, it's a circle, and you can have cars, but the cars in the garages are on the outside of the circle. You come out of your front door on the inside of the circle, so that anybody with a disability is safe. You don't have to worry about traffic That's on the outside of the circle. And then inside of the circle, you have a community house where you can go to dine on a daily basis. And one of the requirements is if you're going to be living there, everybody has to take a turn cooking for the community. You buy homes, so you're in charge of your living facility. There are activities. There is caring. So that's the cool thing about co-housing. It's a village-like community. It's modeled on that philosophy of we all take care of one another. We all take care of one another, so different than our world today, where we're very individualized, very isolated. We go in our homes, we don't answer the door unless we know who's there. No, this isn't like this at all. This co-housing community is a nurturing place where people look out for one another. And so you cut down on the expense of aides because people take care of you. People get to learn who you are. People get to appreciate you for the individual that you are. There's empathy, there's compassion. That's the foundation from which a co-housing community is built. I am looking for a co-housing community for myself in the future. I just love this model. But for neurodivergent people, oh my God, this is a godsend. In other co-housing communities that Charles has written about, you can have neurodivergent people. It's just not specifically designed for neurodivergent people like his new co-housing community is designed. And for these other types of co-housing, you have to be a bit more independent. So there's tests that you take in some of these communities to see what your level of care is, to see what your level of independence is. And if you fit in this range where you can kind of take care of yourself with help, but you don't need minute by minute care, then you qualify. But I'm looking at the communities for the most severe that need an aide, that need somebody living with them so they can function. But they're also in a community where they get to see people who care about them, who they can relate to, who can they can thrive with. And I mean, this just gives me so much joy to think about this. And it's the architectural programming that makes the co-housing village community work for safety and protection. And then lastly, something else I learned about on this show, and I did an interview with a woman named Megan Bondi, Work the Way You're Wired. So Megan I met. Megan lives in Colorado. A lot of people live in Colorado that are on the forefront of these housing opportunities. But I met Megan when we did our TEDx talk a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And Megan talked about being gifted, but also with autism, gifted being exceptional, very intelligent, over a 130 IQ, but also having autism. So it kind of offsets the intellectual prowess with other behavioral issues that you have. But Megan was talking about intentional housing, and she's working on projects where you have a multi-use house. You may have four different sections to a house, and you buy into it, or you can be there for a specific amount of time and you move on. But you're with people that you are like. So twice gifted people, people that have exceptional intelligence, but also have autism, that can't really go to a business, a company every day and work 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. You have to work on your own time frame and you have work output. You get paid for what you do, but you work in an environment that is established for your needs. And so what I learned with Megan is And you may know this yourself from work that you do. You don't have to work 9 to 10 hours a day to be productive and make money. It's the way you work. It's the way you use your time. It's how you invest yourself in the use of time that produces the results of work output and income. So that's called intentional housing. You build a house, you build a residential environment with the intention of X, Y, and Z. What do you want to create? What do you want people to be able to do that are living in this housing development, this housing project, so to speak? So, to recap, we have 6 versions of housing. We have living at home, unfortunately, an institution. If that's the only thing, then that's the only option. But we have Section 8 housing. We have host housing, we have co-housing, and we have intentional housing. So these are all the different forms of housing that you can think about. But in order to get into anything decent, you need to prepare when your child is young or starting right now, regardless of the age, and you need to put money aside. If you can, you need to put money aside. You need a conservatorship, you need a trust. You just need to start creating a fund that can be used for your child so your child has the best option in where they can live so that you never have to worry about them when you're gone. And that's the whole issue. So you have 3 things in front of you. You have options now that you can start exploring to see what works best for you. And again, with government funding being cut in this day and age, we're going to have to do things on our own. We're going to have to be in charge of developing an environment that works for our children. So preparing financially is extremely important. And then transitioning while you're still alive. Don't wait until you're no longer here. Start transitioning your child now so that you can possibly have your child where they are going to be for life. So you no longer have to worry. Now, if you don't have something in your community and you find something in another state or in another part of your state, your reality may be that you would have to move. But look at all the sacrifices you're making now. Or with a group of people that are like-minded, and this is why I want to do the show so that people can start banding together. You might develop something on your own with a group of people that will provide for all of your children. And that would be the best ever. So you have options now. I want you to think about these. Look at the show notes. Everything is there for you to print out. And then please come back next week when we have Charles Durat, and we're going to just have a blast talking about his projects in co-housing now specifically for neurodivergent people. Thank you very much for your time. And as always, my parting comment, in the world of special needs people, we all need each other. Take care.